Hi, it's Jane. I am making another video, I suppose because I have something that I wanted to talk about. If you haven't seen my previous video, watch it, but I suppose that video was about my experience of having an early miscarriage, or what I later learnt was likely a chemical pregnancy. And I had actually been wanting to make another video a bit earlier, but just never got around to it. And I suppose I'd wanted to talk about trying to conceive after a miscarriage, and I suppose my experience of that. And I think one thing that I wanted to talk about was I suppose becoming pregnant when we were, just seeing what happens, and then, really wanting that pregnancy and then having a miscarriage. And I suppose that showing to us that we really did want to have a baby and that we did want to try. And I was pretty lucky that my cycle seemed to kick back in straight away. I had my first cycle pretty much like 28 days after the bleeding. So I think everything kind of kicked back in, but I suppose we didn't go straight into trying per se. And I suppose I was maybe trying more so than my husband. And I suppose when I say that, I mean that I was, tracking my period, which was something that I did anyway. But I suppose looking at that and checking the days that I'm ovulating and kind of, making things happen on that date. And I think the first month I wasn't that surprised that I wasn't pregnant, and then the second month I think we hadn't had that much opportunity to try, and so again I was upset, but not, like, it wasn't surprising again. And so then I decided to get ovulation tests because I wanted to make sure that I was ovulating, and I'd never taken ovulation tests before. So I started taking ovulation tests, just the strip ones. So I bought them from Amazon online, and I can't remember if I was using them correctly. I think you're supposed to take 2 a day and not use your first morning urine. You're supposed to hold your urine towards the end of the day and not drink lots of water so that your urine isn't diluted. And so the first month I did it, and I got a darker line, but I never got a full positive. So with the ovulation test, you're supposed to get a line that is as dark or darker than the control line, so it looks just like a pregnancy test, but it will come up with 2 lines most of the time. But so I never got a fully dark positive one. And now that I think back, I never actually had lines, faint lines, in the days coming up to when I thought I was ovulating. And I'm not sure if that was because the hormone wasn't there, or I wasn't leaving the test long enough, because I realized that with the ones that I have, you actually have to leave them a pretty long time for the lines to actually show up. So I think, thinking back, I'm not sure if I was reading them right, or I'm not sure if I was ovulating, or if my hormones were getting up high enough to ovulate. And so I had thought that I'd pinpointed my ovulation and, done what we needed to do. And I wasn't pregnant. And I think that was really upsetting for me, because when I had fallen pregnant before, we hadn't really been trying, and it had just happened because we had had sex on the day that, or the day after, you know, at the right time to conceive. So I kind of just thought that it would happen like that again, but it didn't. So I was quite upset when I didn't conceive. And then I think it was just bringing up a lot of those thoughts about like I wanted to be pregnant and I wanted to have this baby. And I think it just started hitting me a bit harder. And like someone had brought up, like they just mentioned the date that would have been the due date. And like they obviously had no idea, but someone just mentioned it. And that was quite like shocking for me just to hear someone say that and be like, oh, that's that date and that's not happening. And then my husband had also kind of expressed that he was upset as well that we weren't having the baby that we'd conceived before. So that was quite upsetting for me. And then the next month I again did the ovulation tests, and I was getting more of a line with the ovulation tests before like I was supposed to ovulate. So again, I'm not sure if I was reading them wrong last time or I wasn't producing enough of the hormone, but I was already getting a more visible line. And again, I didn't get like a clear positive, but it was a dark line. And with other symptoms, I was able to pinpoint my ovulation, but I wasn't using like I wasn't checking my temperature and the change in my temperature, so I wasn't able to confirm that, and I didn't have a thermometer, so I couldn't do that. So I believe that I'd pinpointed my ovulation, and this time again was making sure things were done at the right time. And then, yeah, I waited the 2 weeks, and I tested 2 days before my period. And also because I put into my app the ovulation test and it read it as negative, the app was saying that I had ovulated a day later, and my period was expected a day later. So by the app I supposedly tested 3 days before my missed period, but it was actually like 2 days before my missed period using a different app that I've used for years, which obviously has tracked my cycle and gathered data about my cycle, so I feel like the other app was more accurate. So I tested 2 days before my missed period, and I tested one because I was anxious and I'm not good at waiting. I just want to know everything. And 2, I'd been pretty tired, which isn't like abnormal. Like some days, you know, if I've been to the gym or I've had a busy day at work or, you know, just not that great, I might be pretty tired. But I'd been pretty tired for a few days, and I was also having indigestion, and I've never experienced this sensation before. So I get a lot of like gas. I'm pretty gassy, but I get this gas that comes from my stomach and comes up my esophagus, and I can usually, if I feel it here, I can kind of like contract that area and the gas just comes up, and it doesn't make a noise or anything. I can hear it, but I think that's because I can feel the sensation. But I was having this experience where the gas would build up here and I would try and contract and it wouldn't, so I couldn't get it up. And I hadn't experienced that before. And it was quite embarrassing. I was in like a meeting with a lot of people at work and this was happening, and I was still like trying to, you know, press the gas up, and eventually it came up, but because so much had built up, it was really loud and it actually sounded like a burp, which yeah, was weird. So I had been tired and I was having indigestion, or I think that's what indigestion is, I'm not really sure. It wasn't painful, it just was gas. Yeah, so I took a test 2 days before my missed period and it was positive. And that was like, I wasn't shocked because I had had, you know, very basic symptoms, and thought that it was a possibility, but at the same time, you know, I was, you know, I'd gotten all in my head and was thinking, you know, you're not going to conceive, like it's going to take ages, you know, all that stuff that happens when you're stressing about things. So I took a test, and so this was, I think I was 12 days past ovulation, and it came up positive, and it came up pretty positive. I'll take a picture and insert it into the clip. And I've since taken a few afterwards as well. Yeah, it was pretty positive. So that was exciting, but I think I actually cried because I was quite scared. And I still am, because it is scary. Like, the same thing could just happen again, and I don't want to believe that, and I want to be positive that, you know, this is going to be different, but there's going to be that thought in your mind. And anyway, I was home from work that day. I just had the day off. I get a day off once a month. So I was by myself, so I kind of had all day to I suppose process that by myself. And then when my husband came home from work, I told him. I had thought about doing a whole big thing and whatever. One, I didn't think that he would like that. He doesn't like surprises. He doesn't like big things like that. So I decided against that and just kind of told him offhanded, like I was cooking dinner or something, and I just kind of made an offhanded comment, and he was like, "What? Are you pregnant?" And I think he was a bit shocked, and so he didn't have, I suppose, the same response that we did last time, where we became quite emotional together. But he was obviously happy. We're back. I also have a cold today. That's why I'm home, because I went home from work. But yeah, where was I? I told my husband, and you know, we shared a bit of a moment, but it wasn't as exciting as last time. And I think I felt a bit sad that we couldn't have that moment of excitement and joy, and I suppose like we did last time, where, you know, we immediately started talking about names and all the stuff that you do. So there's, you know, there was definitely a bit of that apprehension there. And so the next day I took another test. So I've taken a test every day since then, because I do want to see if the line's getting darker, because that was something that didn't happen with my other pregnancies. The line didn't really get darker, and then obviously the day, I think it was either the day of or the day before the miscarriage, but the line had gotten lighter. So yeah, I do want to see if the line is getting darker. So I took another test, and it's about the same. And then that night, my husband was out with his friends, so I went to my mum and dad's for dinner. My mum loves her wine, and I do too. I really enjoy drinking wine. So it is pretty normal for me to have a glass or two when I go to my mum's. And so first thing when I get there, she offers me a glass of wine, and I said no thank you. And I was gonna say I've got a sore throat, because I actually had a really sore throat and I'd been coughing all day. But before I could say that, she says, "Are you pregnant again?" And I said yes. And on the way over there, I'd said to myself that I wasn't going to tell her unless she asked, because I suppose having that experience with my husband, like where we weren't able to have this big moment, I didn't want to have that. Like, when I told my mum, I wanted her to be excited. Yeah, so when I told my mum, I wanted her to be excited because I hadn't told her last time until after I had the miscarriage. And all she really said was, like, how far along are you? And I wasn't even 4 weeks at this stage because it was still a day before my period. And she was like, okay, well, you know, I suppose the same thing could happen again then. And I was like, yeah. So that was a bit shit. But yeah, I think that was kind of what I wanted to talk about, was like this feeling of not being able to be excited and the worry that the same thing will happen again. Yeah, so the worry that the same thing will happen again. But I suppose today I took another test. As I said, I've taken one every day since, and I've had two different types. I've had the cheap dip ones that I got at the same time as getting the ovulation test, the same brand. And I've also got some cheap ones from the supermarket, no brand name, but they work a lot faster. You get a line much quicker. So I've been alternating between them because I have a big pack of the cheap ones and only, well, I had 4 of the other ones, which is still cheap, but not as cheap. And today I got a much darker line, and I think that was really reassuring for me, because I didn't get that last time. As I said, the line didn't really get darker. And so, yeah, I'm wanting to get excited, but at the same time don't want to, because I don't want to get my hopes up. But I'm booking, it's Monday, and I've booked in an appointment with my doctor for Friday. I couldn't get an appointment earlier with my preferred doctor, and I would like to see my preferred doctor. So I'll do that on Friday and hopefully get my bloods taken, and I really don't even know what the process is, but I've heard people talking about like repeat bloods to see the HCG level is doubling, so hopefully I do that. And I'm also considering asking about hormone levels as well, because I haven't done much research into it, but I've heard that like if your hormone levels are low, so like your progesterone is low, then that can increase the risk of miscarriage. So that's something that I'd like to ask about as well. So yeah, that's on Friday. Just fingers crossed that we get there, and get past 5 weeks this time. So yeah, I'm trying not to think too much about it, but can't really keep out of the forums and off YouTube and that type of stuff. But I suppose I will keep updating. Yeah, and just wanting to share this process as a way of getting through it myself, but also sharing with others, so that hopefully helps other people. So thank you for watching. Yeah, check back in to see if I've made any more videos. I would love to hear your experiences as well. Yeah, see you later.